The first warning came as a whisper, soft, almost harmless, like the quiet hum of background static. Most species wouldn't have noticed it. Most would have dismissed it as another fluctuation in the Galactic Consuil's endless stream of political noise. But humanity heard it. Humanity felt it. Because the message wasn't meant for the galaxy. It was meant for them. For cycles, humanity had lived under the shadow of an old debt. A promise made long before most even knew the Consul existed. The agreement had been simple. Humanity would stand aside while the galactic powers handled their wars, their diplomacy, their ancient rivalries. In return, the Consul would protect the fragile human colonies scattered along the outer spirals. That promise had held for generations, and humanity patient underestimated. Often ignored, waited quietly on the edge of a galaxy that didn't fully respect it. But debts don't last forever, and protection, once broken, demands repayment. It began on a small research station orbiting a dim red star. Nothing remarkable, nothing strategic, just a place where humans studied strange particles and distant cosmic echoes. The crew was small, a handful of engineers, 2 xenologists, a medic, and a communications specialist who'd been hoping for a quiet assignment. No weapons, no defenses, just a station of ordinary people carrying out ordinary work. Then one morning even existed in the eternal dark of space. The station fell. Silent, not destroyed, not damaged, just silent. The distress beacon lit up across human space. A thin pulse trembling on every receiver. It didn't scream. It didn't beg. It simply repeated the same coded phrase over and over, as if the station itself was too afraid to say more. The Consul has broken the pact. In the core worlds, leaders gathered in hidden rooms, their faces pale. Old files were reopened. Old treaties revisited. Old fears resurfaced. Because humanity had not risen to power by shouting or conquering. Humanity advanced by surviving quietly, stubbornly, relentlessly. Humanity had learned to build while others destroyed, to endure while others chased glory, and when humanity finally acted, it never acted halfway. Across distant galaxies, whispers rustled through alien courts. Species older than human civilization stirred uneasily. They remembered ancient stories of a young species that did not kneel, did not surrender, and did not forget promises made in blood and fire. The Consul, large and powerful as it was, had done something unthinkable. It had tested the patience of a species that owed it nothing but repayment. But the galaxy didn't yet understand what it meant for humans to repay a debt. Not truly. Back on Terra, the homeworld that had birthed countless legends, storms brewed in the skies as fleets prepared for launch. The massive shipyards, usually quiet, peaceful, used for exploration, vessels shifted to full capacity. Engineers worked without rest. Pilots trained with renewed focus. And among them all stood an unassuming logistics officer, someone who had never expected to play a central role in anything grand, soft-spoken, careful, a believer in peaceful solutions. That officer was assigned to organize the first humanitarian response team because officially, humanity still hoped the missing crew could be rescued. Yet behind every supply crate and every deployment order, a deeper tension grew. The Consul's silence was too deliberate, the timing too perfect, and the faint trace of energy found in the distress signal matched technology humans weren't supposed to recognize, but they did, because humanity had seen it once before. Long ago, more ships vanished over the following days. Not human warships, just cargo haulers, repair vessels, small scout teams sent to check the outer rings. Each disappearance was precise, clean, almost surgical. It was the kind of operation meant to send a message without sparking a warp. The Consul expected fear. They expected humans to back down. They were wrong. The Consul had forgotten something. Important something no treaty or threat could erase. Humans protect their own. And when someone tries to harm them quietly, patiently, strategically, humans get louder. Human space unified in a way no other species ever had. Every colony, every station, every drifting mining town contributed something: fuel, data, personnel, ships. It wasn't forced. It wasn't commanded. It was instinct, a natural response, a collective understanding that a line had been crossed. And as preparations grew, something else surfaced: an ancient document, half buried in the archives of humanity's earliest encounters with the galaxy. A message left behind by a long-extinct species that once tried to warn the Consul. Though no one had listened at the time, the message said only one thing: do not awaken the debt-bearers. That phrase echoed through human council chambers, unsettling even the most seasoned strategists. Because if humanity was the debt-bearers, then what debt did they carry? And what exactly were they expected to repay? Rumors swirled among civilians. Some said the debt referred to a forgotten war, one humanity never officially joined. Others claimed humans were chosen by a species far older and more powerful than the Consul, entrusted with something the galaxy had taken for granted. But none of the stories felt complete, and the answers remained locked behind sealed files no one alive had the clearance to open. Still, even without full truth, one thing was clear: the galaxy feared what humanity might become when forced to act. The first human task force launched on a quiet cycle, without fanfare. A cluster of sleek ships slid through slipstreams, carrying scientists, soldiers, diplomats, and drones. Officially, they were searching for survivors. Unofficially, they were preparing for something much larger: operation that could rewrite human-galactic relations forever. As the task force approached the region where the research station had vanished, the stars dimmed unnaturally, like someone was drawing a curtain across the cosmos. Communication signals warped. Instruments flickered. And for a moment, just a moment, they detected something vast. Something hidden behind layers of distortion. Something watching. The fleet slowed. Pilots held their breath. Commanders exchanged worried glances. No one fired. No one spoke. They simply drifted into a silence so total it felt alive. Then, without warning, a single transmission cut through the void. Not human. Not Consul. Something older. Something deeper. A voice that carried exhaustion and authority and a warning all at once. Humanity, the time has come. Repay what was owed. The message ended. Nothing followed. No explanation. No coordinates. Just that chilling announcement that shook the heart of every person aboard the fleet. The officers turned to their commander, an older, calm individual who had seen dozens of conflicts, but never anything like this. Their expression hardened with a resolve that was uniquely human, the kind of determination that formed empires and toppled tyrants. "This isn't a rescue mission anymore," the commander said quietly. "Someone wants us to wake up." But before they could decide their next move, the space around them rippled like reality itself was folding inward. Ships shuddered. Alarms erupted. And a massive unidentified structure began to materialize from the void, larger than any station humanity had ever encountered. It wasn't Consul tech. It wasn't anything the galaxy had catalogued, and carved across its surface, glowing faintly in shifting ancient light, was the unmistakable symbol found on the original pact that humanity had never been allowed to read fully. The fleet froze. The structure opened, and from its dark core, something began to emerge, something that had waited for humanity, something that would make the entire Galactic Consuil tremble. The fleet braced themselves, hearts pounding, waiting for whatever would appear. And then everything went black. Darkness swallowed everything, not the simple kind that came when stars dipped behind planets or stations powered down for maintenance. This was deeper, heavier, almost physical, like a curtain drawn over existence itself. The human fleet drifted in that void, silent and helpless, their ships suspended as if held in an invisible grip. The lights on the control panels flickered, then steadied in a dim, muted glow. Enough for the crew to realize they were no longer alone. The darkness vibrated, not with sound, but with presence. Then, slowly, faint shapes began to form at the edges of the black, like shadows gathering strength. No alarms triggered, they couldn't. The sensors were dead. External cameras showed only the same consuming void. But every person felt it. Deep in their bones, something was studying them. When the lights finally surged back to life, the bridge crews gasped. They weren't where they had been. The massive structure that had emerged from the void now filled their screens, closer than before. Its surface shifted like it was alive, patterns glowing and fading, as if breathing. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't organic. It was something in between. The commander stood frozen for a long moment, eyes fixed on the impossible structure. The rest of the bridge waited, unsure whether to speak or even move. Status. The commander finally managed. The navigation officer checked systems, hands trembling slightly. "We're still in the same region, sir, but we've been repositioned, pulled." Another officer swallowed hard. "Sir, that structure. It's scanning us, but not like console tech. It's reading everything." A quiet dread settled over the room. Humans were used to being underestimated, being overlooked. But being examined by something they'd never encountered before felt different. Unsettling, intimate. As the fleet regained limited control, the commander ordered all ships to remain on standby. No sudden moves. No signals. The structure made the first move before. It would likely make the next. Across the fleet, crews whispered about the mysterious message. Repay what was owed. Repay what was owed. The words echoed through every mind. No one understood them, but they all felt the weight of those words, heavy, ancient, final, on one of the vessel's assigned ship. Adapted for long-range analysis, a young researcher was reviewing the faint residue of energy captured before. Everything went dark. They leaned forward, adjusting the filters, trying to make sense of the strange patterns. The energy signature wasn't random. It formed a sequence almost like a language, but not one known to the Galactic Consuil, not one known to humanity. Still, it felt familiar, as if humans had once known it but forgotten. As if the memory lived just beneath the surface, waiting to be stirred. The researchers saved the data, intending to bring it to the lead analyst. But before they could, the console flickered. A new symbol appeared on screen, one that hadn't been transmitted by any human system. It glowed in the same quiet, pulsing rhythm as the markings on the structure. The researchers stared. Breath caught in their throat, because the symbol was the same one etched in the ancient document humanity had uncovered back on Terra. The same one associated with that untranslatable phrase. "Do not awaken the debt-bearers." Across the ship, the symbol spread to other consoles, replacing navigation maps, diagnostics, status reports, not overriding them, echoing them, as if the structure was synchronizing its presence with human systems. Not as an attack, not as a takeover, more like an introduction. The lead analyst rushed in, eyes wide. "Where's this coming from?" The researchers shook their head. "It's not coming from anywhere." They pointed at the readings. "It's merging with the system's baseline. It's showing familiarity with our tech, almost like it recognizes it." The analyst's expression tightened. That shouldn't be possible. But something out there clearly disagreed. Meanwhile, diplomatic channels buzzed quietly within the fleet. Humanity's governments had sent their messages with caution, trying not to provoke the consul before they understood what was happening. But the consul didn't respond, not even to demand an explanation for the sudden movement of human ships. Not to warn, not to threaten, just silence. The kind of silence that didn't happen by accident. The commander studied the blank galactic map, its empty patches now feeling ominous. If the consul knows what this thing is, the commander murmured to their first officer. They're hoping it deals with us before they have to. The first officer didn't disagree. In consul space, panic often hid behind protocol. If they were silent now, it meant they were afraid. And that fear was never a good sign. On another ship, communications specialist continued to examine the fragments of the original distress signal from the vanished research station. They replayed the recording over and over, isolating anomalies, trying to find clues. It was simple, too simple for a standard distress call, almost like the station had been forced to send only what it could before going silent when the specialist slowed the transmission to a near-still pulse. Something unexpected emerged, a faint background pattern beneath the main message. A barely there rhythm, repeating steadily, the same rhythm, pulsing from the massive structure. They felt the hairs stand up on the back of their neck. Someone or something had been at the research station. Someone or something had tried to warn humanity, but the consul had reached the station first or silenced it before the warning could be decoded. While the fleet continued gathering data, the commander authorized a small, unmanned probe to approach the structure. The probe drifted quietly toward the glowing surface, transmitting everything it could. As it reached within a few meters, the structure reacted not violently, not defensively. It shifted, a ripple passed along its surface, and an opening formed. Not a mechanical door, not an organic membrane. Something else. Something that looked like space itself bending apart. The probe hesitated, unable to determine if the opening was safe. Then the structure sent out a soft pulse of energy. The probe's sensors translated it as a two-layered signal. The first layer, request. The second layer, an invitation. The commander leaned forward. What does it want? The science officer swallowed. Us, not the probe, us. The fleet exchanged glances. No one rushed to volunteer. They had crossed strange frontiers before, but this was different. This wasn't exploration. This wasn't diplomacy. This was something older calling them, something patient, something that had waited for the moment humanity would step forward. But humans didn't retreat. It wasn't in their nature. After a tense debate, small team was chosen to scientists, one cultural expert, one engineer, and a security officer. They would board a shuttle and approach the opening in the structure. Not enter, not yet. Just approach. The shuttle disengaged from the main ship and drifted toward the massive construct. The closer they got, the more the surface seemed to shimmer, reflecting nothing, absorbing everything. No stars, no light. Just the structure itself, stretching into infinity. As they reached the edge of the opening, their instruments flickered. The energy readings spiked, then stabilized. The engineer whispered, "It's matching our systems again." Learning from them? The cultural expert leaned closer to the viewport. "This doesn't feel like a trap." The security officer snorted softly. "Everything feels like a trap until it isn't." But the expert continued. "It's communicating through patterns, not words, inviting us without forcing. That's not hostile behavior." The scientist replied quietly, "Hostile or not. It knows more about us than we know about it." Inside the structure, something glowed, soft, distant, almost beautiful. Like a light waiting for visitors. The team exchanged glances. The commander's voice crackled through the comms. "You do not enter without my direct order. Hold position." The shuttle held position. Seconds dragged into minutes. Then the glow inside shifted. Patterns unfolded like a slow wave, forming symbols. Sumans, symbols. Not alien ones, letters, words, from a human language no other species used. The shuttle crew stared. Stunned, the symbols spelled out a simple message. This is your inheritance. The commander stood speechless as the message appeared on every ship in the fleet, glowing softly like a memory being awakened. Before anyone could react, the structure sent out a final pulse. Not threatening, not harmful, but immense and ancient signal rippled across human space, passing from ship to ship, station to station, colony to colony. Everyone who heard it felt a chill run through them, almost like recognition, almost like something they'd forgotten long ago. Humanity wasn't being summoned. Humanity was being reminded. Across the fleet, screens flickered. The mysterious symbols shifted again, aligning into a new message. One that made every heart stop. The consul feared your return. The fleet remained frozen, stunned, terrified, curious all at once. Because if this was humanity's inheritance, what had the consul tried so hard to keep from them? And why was the galaxy trembling now? No one knew that the next pulse was already building within the structure, stronger, older, waiting to reveal what the darkness had not yet shown. The pulse that followed was nothing like the others, deeper, thicker, almost like it carried a memory inside it. Every human in the fleet felt it in a way no scanner could explain. It wasn't pain or fear or anything that belonged to the body. It felt more like something tugging gently at the mind, asking to be noticed, asking to be remembered. On the bridge of the flagship, the commander gripped the console, steadying themselves against the quiet force washing over the ship. Light trembled on the main screen, shifting into layered waves of color that hummed with a strange familiarity. The science officer leaned forward, eyes narrowed in focus, trying to decode the patterns. But the more the shapes shifted, the more they seemed designed not for analysis, but for recognition. Whatever this is, the science officer murmured, it's keyed to human perception, almost like it's built to communicate only with us. The commander exhaled slowly. Then it wants us to understand something. But understanding seemed far away. Across the fleet, every ship reported the same thing. Crew members experiencing flashes of something they couldn't describe. Not images, not sounds. More like fragments of emotions from someone else, from some other time. A sense of old fear, old hope, a long journey, a long wait. The engineer aboard the shuttle, still hovering at the mouth of the structure, spoke quietly into their recorder. It feels like history that isn't ours, but also is like we're remembering something we never lived. Their voice trembled at the edges. I don't know how that's possible. The cultural expert nodded slowly, eyes locked on the glowing doorway. There are myths in early human record stories of ancestors who came from somewhere beyond mapped space. Most people thought they were symbolic tales. But what if those stories were fragments of truth? Passed down, changed, forgotten. The security officer looked uneasy. Stories don't pull ships across space and send messages in dead languages. No, the expert agreed. But maybe the ones who wrote those stories could. The commander listened from the flagship, absorbing every word. The more they heard, the more the pieces seemed to form a shape, but never fully, always slipping out of reach. Meanwhile, in human space, leaders watched from afar as the fleet transmitted data back to Terra. Entire departments were established overnight to examine the mysterious structure, the messages, and the implications. Some officials pushed for caution, urging the fleet to retreat before the consul decided humanity had stepped too far. Others argued that humanity had already crossed the point of no return, and a few older, quieter expressed something else entirely. Recognition. One advisor, who rarely spoke publicly, sat in a dim council chamber reviewing the latest transmission. His eyes lingered on the glowing symbols the structure kept producing. His hands trembled. He finally whispered, "I've seen this before." The others turned sharply. He shook his head. "Not personally. Not in my lifetime. But in old files sealed before even the modern console was formed." He didn't elaborate. He couldn't. Even he didn't have authorization to open those files. But the shape of the symbols, the weight of the transmission, it all pointed to something humanity was never meant to uncover. Back at the fleet, tensions continued to grow. A second message appeared inside the structure, unfolding like a slow wave of light. The symbols rearranged into another sentence, simple yet heavy. "You were not made by them." The bridge went silent. Not made by who? The Consuil. The galaxy. The ancient species that once ruled the stars. The science officer swallowed hard, staring at the translation. "This changes everything." The commander said nothing. But deep down, they knew the structure wasn't simply revealing information, it was setting the stage. Drawing humanity toward a truth the rest of the galaxy had feared for ages, and the Consul's fear was becoming clearer. They feared what humanity might remember, while the fleet tried to interpret the cryptic message. Something else happened, a tremor in subspace, faint but noticeable. Several ships detected a distant disturbance, like a shockwave traveling through the slipstream routes. The navigation officer checked the readings twice, then a third time. Their voice tightened. "Commander." The shockwave came from Consul space. The commander turned sharply. "Damage? A battle?" "I'm not sure." But it wasn't natural. Speculation rippled through the crew. Had the Consul activated some ancient weapon? Had they lost control of something? Or were they trying to destroy evidence of what they'd kept hidden for generations? Before the fleet could analyze it further, the structure reacted. Its surface rippled as if responding to the subspace shockwave. Patterns flared brighter, faster, more urgent. The massive construct opened further, revealing an inner chamber glowing with swirling light. The shuttle crew felt a pulgent towel, encouraging, like the structure wanted them to come inside. The engineer stepped closer to the viewport, awe and fear mixing in their voice. "It's opening up for us again. But not like before. This feels like a warning." The cultural expert shivered. "Or a request for help." The security officer frowned. "Help from who?" "Us." The expert's voice softened. "If this structure is connected to our origins, then maybe it's been waiting for humans because it can't communicate with anyone else." The scientist whispered, "Maybe it was built by humans. Or by something that came before us." That possibility hung in the air, heavier than any threat, while the shuttle debated their next move. The flagship received a new unscheduled transmission, this one from an unexpected source. Consul ship had entered the region. Not a warship. Not a diplomatic cruiser. A lone vessel. Its energy signature was faint, unstable, as though damaged. It drifted into view and sent a short, urgent broadcast. The commander ordered the message displayed. The screen flickered, revealing a Consul delegate pale, strained, trembling with fear. Their voice was thin, broken. "You must listen," the alien said. "You must leave that place before it is too late." The commander stiffened. "Explain." The delegates shook their head, glancing around as if someone might be listening. "They will hear me. They always do. That structure, it is not what you believe. It is not a gift. It is not inheritance. It is a beacon." The bridge held its breath. "A beacon for what?" the commander asked. The delegate's voice dropped to a whisper. "For those who built you." The bridge erupted in shocked murmurs. The commander raised a hand, silencing them. "Are you saying humans were created?" The delegates squeezed their eyes shut. We tried to bury the truth. We tried to protect our worlds by hiding it. But the beacon has awakened. You were meant to find it eventually. But not now. Not so soon. The commander leaned forward, heart pounding. What happens if we don't leave? The delegate didn't answer. Instead, they suddenly froze. Their eyes widened. The transmission jittered with static. Then the delegate whispered, almost too quietly to hear, "They are coming." And the line went dead. The console ship's engines flared. But before it could turn away, the structure sent out a soft pulse. Not a weapon, not an attack, but a wave of energy that washed gently over the console vessel. Every system on the alien ship shut down at once. The vessel drifted, powerless, its lights fading. The console delegate collapsed out of view. No alarms, no screams. Just silence. The commander turned to the science officer. Was that deliberate? The officer shook their head. It wasn't hostile. It didn't damage anything. It just stopped the ship. The communications specialist murmured, like the structure was silencing them. The commander stared at the glowing doorway. Was the console telling the truth? Were humans built, or were they simply part of something older? The beacon concept gnawed at every mind in the fleet. If humans were being called, who or what was answering? And why now? The commander opened a channel to the shuttle. Return immediately. We need to regroup. But before the shuttle could comply, the structure pulsed again, this time more forcefully. The glowing doorway shifted, and new symbols appeared, larger, brighter, unmistakably urgent. The translation came instantly. They have found you. The shuttle crew froze. The fleet froze. Humanity froze. The structure flared like a star about to ignite, and deep in the void, behind them, sensors picked up several somethings merging from slip space. Unknown signatures. Unknown shapes. Moving fast. Whatever they were. They were heading straight for the human fleet, and none of them, human or alien, had ever seen anything like it. The unknown signatures rippled across the fleet's sensors like ripples on water, multiplying with impossible speed. Each reading brought a new set of questions, massive objects, traveling faster than anything in human or console records, yet behaving as if aware of every human maneuver. The fleet's ships, trained for combat and exploration, felt exposed, vulnerable. For the first time, they understood what fear truly meant in space. Not fear of dying. Fear of being understood too late. Fear of being found by something they were never meant to confront. The commander gripped the armrest of the bridge chair, eyes fixed on the flickering display. Every ship in the fleet reported the same thing, signals approaching, but not from slipspace alone. There was a pulse, a rhythm, a presence that seemed alive, not mechanical, not biological, not console. Something older, something that had waited. Distance? The commander asked. The navigation officer shook their head. Impossible to calculate. It's like they're already here, but also still light years away. Across the flagship, tension thickened. Crews whispered in corners, eyes darting between consoles, trying to make sense of what no sensor could explain. The science officer leaned over a datapad, muttering to themselves. The energy signature. It's in resonance with the structure. And us. The commander frowned. What do you mean, us? The officer's eyes widened. It's keyed to human biology. 2 thought patterns. To our presence here. They know we're here. They know. The communications officer interrupted, voice tight. Sir, the shuttle is sending urgent signals. Something is happening at the structure. The shuttle crew's voices came through, fragmented, almost lost. The engineer's tone was shaky. The doorway. It's reacting. It's not opening, it's expanding. The patterns they're moving faster than anything we've seen, like it's alive, trying to prepare something. The cultural expert added, voice trembling or warning us. We've crossed a threshold it never expected us to cross so soon. Suddenly, the structure pulsed with lights so bright it registered across every monitor in the fleet. The glow wasn't just illumination, it was a wave vibrating through the void, rippling over the ships, threading into the human systems, connecting them in a way that felt impossible. Consoles blinked, sensors recalibrated, and for a brief moment, everyone could feel it. The presence, the weight, the memory. The shuttle's security officer whispered, voice tight, it knows we're afraid. And it doesn't care. The commander's voice cut through the tension. Stay focused. Stay on mission. Maintain formation. We cannot react emotionally. Yet every fiber of the human fleet's being screamed in defiance, in awe, and in terror. Then the first of the unknown entities appeared. Not ships. Not anything built by intelligence they could comprehend. Shadows larger than the flagship, moving with unnatural precision, cutting through subspace like knives. Each one radiated a subtle, almost imperceptible glow, same resonance as the structure. They weren't attacking yet, not directly, but their presence alone caused readings to spike, systems to shudder, and crew members to break into cold sweats. The commander clenched their jaw. Status on shields. The tactical officer's voice was tense. Full capacity. But their signature? It's destabilizing energy fields. This isn't just pressure. It's perception, manipulation. Systems may fail without warning. The shuttle's pilot gasped overcomes. They're moving around us. Circling, but not in any pattern one recognize. They're watching. Watching. Not engaging. Not retreating. Just observing. The science officer leaned forward, staring at the readings. It's not observing in the way we understand. It's reading intent. Testing us. Assessing if we're capable. The commander turned sharply. Capable of what? Before anyone could answer, the structure pulsed again. This time, the energy wave wasn't soft, was sharp, cutting through subspace and bending the space around the fleet. Ships shuddered under the strain. Lights flickered. Consoles flashed warnings. The crew clung to rails and consoles, some losing footing entirely. Brace! The commander yelled, voice steady but tense. All hands, brace. The fleet lurched. Energy surged along the halls like lightning trapped inside metal. The shuttle rocked violently, and the engineers screamed as systems overloaded. I can't stabilize it. On the flagship, alarms blared in a chaotic symphony. Crew members scrambled, flipping switches, rerouting power, trying to keep essential systems online. Every display in the fleet was filled with cascading errors. But the structure itself remained unchanged, calm, towering, impossible. Then, for a heartbeat, the unknown entities moved. Not toward the fleet, not away. They aligned perfectly with the structure, forming an arc across the void. And suddenly, the structure's symbols began to shift. Words, phrases, entire sentences flickered into existence on every monitor in the fleet. You must decide. The time is now. The shuttle's cultural expert stumbled back from the viewport. Decide what? The science officer's hands shook as they translated. It's asking us to act, to choose. But we don't know what the consequences are. It's judging us. The commander's face was tight, muscles tense, judging humanity. The symbols flickered again, brighter, faster. Another message appeared. The galaxy waits. Your choice will awaken what sleeps. Silence fell across the fleet, broken only by the hum of failing systems and the occasional alarm. Every human aboard every ship felt its weight of responsibility crushing in all directions. The unknown entities remained in position, watching, unblinking, patient. The engineer on the shuttle turned to the commander. "Sir, the doorway is changing. It's growing, expanding into a space we can't measure. If we don't act..." The commander clenched their fists. "We have to understand first." The cultural experts shook their head. "We can't, not fast enough. It's forcing the choice, forcing us to react or remain paralyzed." Across the fleet, tension broke into whispers of fear. What do they want from us? Are we ready? Are we even human enough to respond? Then the first pulse of movement came from the unknown entities. Shadows shifted, elongated, folding in on themselves in a way that defied physics. Ships strained against their own engines, struggling to maintain position. Sensors failed completely, leaving only visual observation. The science officer shouted, "There!" They're resonating with human thought. With our fear, with our resolve. Every movement, every hesitation, it's all feeding into their awareness. The commander leaned over the bridge, jaw tight. "Then we cannot hesitate." The shuttle's security officer looked at the commander, eyes wide. "Sir, if they're linked to the structure, if this is some test, then what happens if we fail?" The commander didn't answer immediately. They stared at the glowing doorway, at the symbols that flickered like stars coming to life, at the shadows circling them. Waiting, the unknown entities began to close in slowly, deliberately cutting through the fleet in perfect formation. Ships shivered as their fields struggled to compensate. The tension in the void was almost tangible, thick enough to touch, thick enough to choke. Then the structure pulsed again, brighter than ever before, filling the entire void with blinding light. Symbols streamed across every surface. Your time is up. Every heart aboard the fleet skipped a beat. Every breath caught, and then the first direct interaction began. Not violence, not words, something else entirely. The structure's pulse connected to the shuttle systems, embedding itself into the core network. Lights shifted. Energy flowed through the hull. The unknown entities responded instantaneously, forming a protective arc around the fleet. The science officer gasped. "It's reacting to us, to our readiness, to our unity. But we can't hold it for long. We're still unprepared." The commander's voice was steady, cutting through the chaos. "Then we prepare now. Every system, every crew member, every ship. This is what we've trained for, and what we've been waiting for without even knowing it. Humanity decides whether we're ready or not." The unknown entities hovered closer, shadows merging with the structure's light. The fleet's sensors strained to capture them. But all that could be measured were ripples in space and the overwhelming sense that something ancient and powerful was about to awaken. The shuttle crew felt the pulls stronger than ever. The doorway glowed wider, stretching into space that seemed infinite. The symbols rotated faster, forming layers of language, of memory, of command. And then, in a single, horrifying instant, the fleet realized this was no longer a choice of curiosity. It was no longer an invitation. It was the moment of reckoning. Whatever slept beyond the doorway, whatever had waited, whatever the unknown entities were guarding, testing, or observing. It was waking. The commander gritted their teeth. "All hands, brace for first contact. Whatever happens next, we face it together." A heartbeat of silence stretched across the void. Then the first shadow detached from the arc surrounding the structure, moving with terrifying precision toward. The fleet and humanity held its breath. The stars themselves seemed to pause as the shadow drew closer. The unknown entities, the structure, the pulsing light, waited, watching. Judging dot and the countdown to the climax had begun. The shadow slowed as it approached the fleet, revealing a form that defied description. It wasn't solid, not in any way humans had ever encountered. Its surface shimmered with the same light that radiated from the structure, reflecting and bending space in ways that seemed alive. Crew members froze, caught between awe and terror, as if the entity could peer into their very thoughts. The commanders steadied themselves, gripping the console as the sense of presence intensified. Then, unexpectedly, the shadow paused. The pulsing from the structure resonated through every ship in the fleet. And the symbols shifted again this time, forming a sequence that was unmistakably deliberate. The words weren't just readable. They were understandable, almost instinctively. You have arrived. You are ready. The science officer gasped. It's responding to our intent. Our resolve. Everything we've done brought us here. Every decision, every step, it was preparing us for this moment. The commander felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on their shoulders. Then we proceed. We answer the call. The shuttle crew exchanged a tense look. The cultural expert whispered, If this is what humanity has been meant to face, then maybe it's not a threat. Maybe it's a chance. The unknown entity, still circling, still observing, shifted in formation, creating a path toward the structure. Every sensor in the fleet struggled to keep pace, but the message was clear. They were being allowed, invited, guided. As the first ships moved forward, the structure seemed to breathe. Light spread outward like a welcoming tide, filling every corner of the void. The doorway expanded once more, revealing a vast, open chamber that stretched farther than any human imagination could comprehend. Inside, shapes and forms moved with purpose, layers of history embedded in their patterns. The structure wasn't just a building, it was a record, a living archive, a memory of something far older than humanity itself. The commander stepped closer to the bridge console, eyes locked on the viewport. This is what we were meant to find. Not a weapon, not a challenge, knowledge, connection. The science officer nodded, still pale. And the unknown entities. They weren't enemies. They were guardians, waiting for someone capable of understanding, waiting for humanity. For the first time in what felt like hours, the tension eased slightly. The unknown shadows aligned perfectly with the structure's light, creating a seamless flow of energy and information. Messages streamed into the fleet systems not as text, but as understanding memories of civilizations that had risen and fallen, warnings of mistakes to avoid, guidance on harnessing knowledge without destruction. The shuttle engineer let out a long breath. It's teaching us, showing us what came before. The cultural expert stepped back, eyes wide with reverence. And it's showing us who we are, who humans really are. We weren't made by the console or by any other civilization. We were meant to inherit this knowledge, meant to rise, not just survive. The commander nodded slowly, feeling a surge of pride and clarity. Humanity had been underestimated, misjudged, feared, but now, in the presence of this structure and its guardians, it became clear that the debt humanity had carried the questions. The struggles, the fights for survival had prepared them for this moment. A final pulse emanated from the structure, enveloping every ship. It wasn't overwhelming or destructive. Instead, it harmonized with the fleet systems, with human perception, with thought itself. A bridge between species, between time, between understanding. The unknown entities began to withdraw slowly, their forms folding back into the void, leaving the fleet and the structure alone. The light dimmed gently, settling into a calm, steady glow. The messages ceased their rapid flicker, leaving only the feeling of connection, of comprehension, of purpose. The commander looked at the crew, all of them still shaken, still processing. "We've done it," they said quietly. We've survived the test. And in surviving, we've been entrusted. The cultural expert smiled faintly. Entrusted with what, exactly? Everything, the commander replied. The knowledge of civilizations past, the understanding of what it means to be human, and the chance to shape our own destiny. The galaxy may have feared us, but now it has a reason to respect us. The science officer studied the structure one last time. And the console. They'll be watching. They'll know what we've discovered. They already know, the commander said. And they're afraid. But they don't have to be enemies. Not anymore. We've proven ourselves. Back on the shuttle, the engineer glanced at the console. Do you think humanity is ready for what comes next? The commander's voice was calm, but filled with certainty. We don't get to decide readiness. We get to decide action. And today, we acted. We faced the unknown, understood it, and lived. That's readiness. As the fleet began to move away from the structure, the light from its chamber fading gently into the stars, the sense of awe lingered. It wasn't just a victory. It was a revelation. Every human aboard every ship carried it now like a seed planted deep within their consciousness. In the void beyond, the unknown entities lingered at the edge of perception, observing, but no longer threatening. They had done their part, and now humanity had done theirs. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary, a species underestimated, feared, and dismissed reasoning to meet its destiny. The commander gazed at the stars, feeling a quiet resolve settle over them. We have a debt to repay, they said softly. Not with violence, but with knowledge, with understanding, with exploration. That's how we'll make our mark. That's how humanity will be remembered. The fleet set course for home, carrying the echoes of the structure's wisdom, the pulse of the unknown entities, and the certainty that they were no longer just participants in the galaxy's story. They were authors of the next chapter. And somewhere far across the void, the structure pulsed once more. Not a warning, not a challenge. A simple affirmation. A promise that humanity had been seen, had been tested, and had been chosen. The stars stretched ahead, endless and waiting. And for the first time in human history, the galaxy felt a little smaller. Humanity felt a little larger. The debt had been repaid, and with it, a new era had begun. And the ripple of that moment would echo across every world, every civilization, and every star yet to be explored. Humanity had stepped into its place among the stars, not as followers, not as conquerors, but as something entirely new, a force of life, curiosity, and courage that the galaxy would never forget. The journey was far from over. There would be challenges, discoveries, and conflicts ahead. But for now, humans could breathe, reflect, and embrace what they had become. And in that calm after the storm, they understood something profound. The galaxy had feared humanity not because of what they had done, but because of what they were capable of becoming. And now they had shown it. The stars waited, the unknown watched, and humanity's story continued brighter, stronger, and unafraid.